thank you for being here.
Yeah.
And
Right?
no, she doesn't.
Okay.
Are you gonna stay for the whole class?
I
Oh,
told
there you
people,
go.
it's just, is it an hour? Is that what it is?
It's 2, right?
It won't be 2, but maybe
Okay,
half.
I'll probably stay for
I mean, it's
an
up to
hour.
you. Don't,
Yeah.
if you need to leave, leave. Don't,
I
I
might
I
sneak
won't
out.
be offended.
I gotta get to Centerville.
No,
Yeah,
you won't be
I won't
offended.
be
Tell her you will be offended.
Well, no, after I leave, I'll tell you
He'll
guys.
be
that.
Oh,
there,
yeah.
yeah, he'll be there. I'll stay and listen to it.
Yeah, there you
What's
go.
just gonna say about me?
All right, so we're gonna talk about business plan today and get into the business planning. So, but we're gonna we're going to approach this from a little bit different of a perspective than how a lot of times people will approach business plans. But here's what I want to say is, so we talked about on Tuesday, for those that were here, we talked about the company foundation. And one of the things that we said is that the one of the pieces that top producing agents all have is a business plan. So for where we're going to start with this is we're going to start by talking about why it's important and just kind of a mindset piece in terms of business plan before we get into the actual business plan. So I have business plans that I'm going to give to you guys, but before I do that, I first want to kind of go through some of these other pieces. And so here's where I typically like to start, is to think about it from the standpoint of there are rules for success. And if you will follow the rules of success, you will be successful. And in fact, I was thinking this week, I had listened to a recording from Jim Rohn, which not Jim Rome, not the sports guy, but Jim Rohn, who had passed away in 2009. And one of the things that he says is if you want anything to change for you, you have to change. Because if you don't change, then things are going to stay the same. And he talked about a company, and if I remember right, I think it was Chevron, the gas and oil company. Chevron had him come and speak to him, and they said, you travel the world, you speak to all these companies. What's going to change, or what's life going to be like in the next 10 years? And he said, gentlemen, I have the answer for you. He said, I know what to tell you what it's going to be like in the next 10 years. And he said, essentially, the next 10 years are going to be just like the last 10 years. And his point with that was, if you don't change, nothing's going to change. And ultimately, his point too was, tomorrow morning, the sun's going to come up in the east and it's going to go down in the west. Nothing's going to change on that. Life is full of opportunities, and also there are going to be disappointments along the way. It's really just a matter of how you are going to respond to those things. So just keep that in mind as we go through and we talk about this. So here's where we're going to start though, is how many of you guys, and so for you guys that are on Zoom, first off, make sure you put your name and office in the chat box. But second, for you guys that are on Zoom, you answer this as well. So how many, and you guys on Zoom, feel free to unmute, but how many of you guys have read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
No, I haven't.
You haven't?
Everyone tells me to read
I've
it.
heard of
Okay,
it, yeah,
you need to
the
read
same
it.
way.
Have you read it? Need to read it. What about on Zoom?
Honestly, yeah.
I haven't, but I plan to.
Oh, sorry, I gotta turn the sound up. We can't hear you. Now,
It's on my books to read.
okay?
I've read it.
Okay, good.
I've
So-
read it as well.
Okay, so Bowen and Trey may need to help me then on this. Well, and you don't have to, but okay, in the book, he talks about something that he calls his cash flow quadrant. So, and so for you guys, the rest of you, yeah, if you have not read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you need to read that. Robert Kiyosaki is the author of the book. Kind of the background of it is he grew up in Hawaii, and he talks about the premise of the book is that he had what he called his rich dad and a poor dad, which his poor dad was his biological father that raised him, but he was a school teacher and just stayed poor his whole life. His best friend growing up's dad was very wealthy, and he says he learned a lot from him. And so he looked at him as kind of a second dad. And so he said, I had two dads. I had a rich dad and a poor dad. And he talks about what he learned then from his rich dad. So part of that goes with this, is what we call the cash flow quadrant. So inside of this cash flow quadrant, the first area up here is what we would call employee. Okay, so most of us start our earning career as being an employee. Most of us began work, got a job somewhere, and we were an employee. And so for me, my first job that was like the first like real job was, and I may have shared this before, but if I did, then just bear with me. But my neighbor across the street owned a grocery store, and I was 12 years old, and I went to my mom and I said, I want to get a job working at John's grocery store. And I said to my mom, will you go and ask John if I could work at the grocery store? And my mom, being a good mom, said, no, you can go and ask John. Now, being now a parent, I'm guessing what happened was that as I walked out the door, she probably called John on the phone and said, hey, FYI, he's coming over to ask for a job. But I didn't know that at the time. So I go over and I'm 12 years old. I knock on the door. He opens the door, and I, you know, as a 12-year-old, I'm scared a little bit of the neighbor guy. And I say, I'm just wondering if I could get a job at your grocery store. And he said, yeah. And now this is the funny part, because you would never get away with this in today's world. But he said, yeah, I need somebody to clean up the meat department after the butcher has, you know, done all of the cut up all the meat for the day. So at 12 years old, I would jump on my bike, I would ride over to the grocery store, and then I would go back in there. And at 12 years old, I was in there with the grinder and the bandsaw. And like, I think back on it now, and I'm like, you would never get away with a 12-year-old going and cleaning all these machines today. But so that was kind of my first job, and as an employee. In fact, if I remember right, I was making $3.25 an hour is what I got paid to work as a 12-year-old cleaning up this meat department. Well, so here's the question for you. As an employee, how much control do you have over your schedule? Yeah, I mean, somewhat,
Yeah.
but really not much, right? You don't have a whole lot of control, meaning the employer is going to tell you, here's when you show up, here's when you're going to go home, here's what I'm going to pay you to do the job, and all that, right? So I then went from being this grocery clerk, I then went and, or not clerk, but cleaning the meat department. Then I stocked some shelves at the grocery store, and then he sold the grocery store. And I don't remember why that affected me, but then I didn't work there anymore. So I don't know if the new owners came in and got rid of everybody because it was all neighbors and family members of this guy or what. But then I went on and just had a few odd jobs. But my first like real office job was at a bank. And I worked there for about 7-ish years, I think, at this bank. Now, part of it for me at that time, as being an employee, I remember they gave me a project to work on, and I worked really hard on this project. And when I got done working on the project, I went to my boss, said, here's what I found, here's what I recommend. And basically my boss said, yeah, we were never going to do any of that. It was just kind of something to look good to the company. And I was ticked because I was like, you haven't put in all this time and effort for that. So that was kind of the first thing that got me frustrated with being an employee. Well, then my boss a few months later came to me and said, hey, I have another project for you. And I was already a little tainted with because of this first one. And he says to me, here's what I need you to do. And I said, well, hold on, that has nothing to do with my department. So I was managing the research and adjustments department for this bank, meaning if somebody needed a copy of a check, we would go find a copy, get a copy of it, send it to them. Or if they had a problem on their account where like they said that they had paid X amount of dollars to buy something, but it came out of their account at a different amount, then my department would go research that. Well, he came to me and had this project, and this project had to do with the returned items department, which so basically bounce checks. And he said, I need you to go do this project. And I said, well, why am I doing the project? Because this is my department and Nancy runs that department. Why isn't Nancy doing it? And he said, well, because I know you'll get the job done, and I'm not sure she will. Well, here's where this became very frustrating to me, because again, as an employee, the way that it worked at the bank was clearly he trusted me more than he did her. But she made more money than I did because she had been at the bank longer than I had. And so because we had equal jobs, in each job had kind of these different, every year you could get so many pay raises or whatever. And she had done the job longer than I had, therefore she made more money. So I was like, wait a minute, like, and I didn't say this, but I'm thinking, she's getting paid more than me and I get to go do her job just because I'll do the job. So I was frustrated. Well, so that led me then to say, I want to go into do a job where I get paid according to how hard that I work. Well, so the second quadrant of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant is what we call self-employed. Now, so you guys tell me, what is the difference between being self-employed and being an employee?
You have the ability to, I mean, I guess that's kind of how do you say that? Implied, right? So it's like you are your own employee, like you work for yourself.
Okay, good. I like it. Any other thoughts?
Do you kind of get to make your own schedule in a way and like be motivated by your wants and needs?
Okay, good. Zoom, any other thoughts? Apparently not. Okay, so yeah, so for me, I remember saying, okay, I want to go do a job that I get rewarded according to how hard that I work. And so what had happened is my wife and I were out looking at houses, and I don't even remember how we got in contact with this agent. Somehow we got in contact with this agent. We had been renting a duplex from my wife's grandma, and we had found out about some house that was not too far, within a few blocks of our house or our apartment. And we were like, let's go take a look at it. And somehow we got connected with this agent. Well, this agent started showing us houses. And I said to the agent, hey, how does this job work? And because I knew at that point they got paid 3%, and actually I thought it was 6%, but I remembered thinking, like in my head, looking at the house we were looking at, calculating how much 6% of that would be. And I was like, wow, this lady's like killing it. And so I was like, how do you do this job? How do you become an agent? So she told me how to do it. I went and got my real estate license. But actually, let me back up. I had called my uncle, who is a builder, and said, I'm thinking about this. What do you think? And he said, well, I have 4 agents that sit my model homes. Now, this is probably in 1993-ish. And he says, I have 4 agents that sit my model homes. 2 of them I paid over $60,000 a year. The other 2 I paid over $100,000. And I was like, okay, well, I was making like 35 at the time. So I was like, even 60 sounded great to me, like sign me up. So I went to real estate school. I get my license. I went and joined a company. And actually, when I got my license, I called my uncle and was like, all right, I'm ready. I got my license. When can I come to work? Because I'm thinking I'll make at least 60,000 working for you. And he said, well, I've already got 4 people that sit my model homes. So unless one of those quits, I can't help you. And I was like, all right, well, what should I do? So he pointed me into another direction, which I did. Now, here's the thing, though. I came out of being an employee and became a self-employed person. And from my standpoint, I looked at it as being, hey, I'm self-employed. And you guys have already brought up, being self-employed, you have a little bit of control over your schedule and when you're going to work, how hard you're going to work, all that kind of stuff, which I liked the idea of that. But since then, here's what I will tell you. And so I'm going to pass on to you what I wish somebody would have taught to me earlier on. And that is this. So as we go from this quadrant, the next quadrant up here is what he calls a business owner. Now, what is the difference between a business owner and being self-employed?
Risk.
Okay, say more about.
So, yeah, I agree that it's risk, but I also feel like when you're self-employed, you're all of the jobs. So you're doing the grunt work all the way up. And then when you're a business, you're finding people to help with all aspects of the job. And so you're not only are you paying yourself, but you're paying those people. You have more responsibility there.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I would say like you're wearing more hats when you are the business owner, just because there's so much more that needs to be facilitated to some degree. So I guess there's aspects of how you're looking at it.
Okay, good. Any other thoughts? Okay, So now, here's where I want to go, because I love what you guys said. But let me ask you a question. The person who owns the business is really what?
Self-employed.
Self-employed. So part of where I want to go with this is what you guys just said to me, which is that basically here, what you said without saying it is a business owner is somebody who has employees and they have multiple jobs. Like, you're looking at it as it's a bigger thing than a self-employed.
Right.
Now, I always worry that I'm not able to convey what I really want, the message I want to get you guys to understand between this.
Hard part about communication.
Yeah, but here's what I would say. So here's how I would say it. From today forward, I don't want you to think of yourself as a self-employed person. Instead, think of yourself as a business owner, because what you guys said to me, without saying it this way, was that when you're self-employed, you're all by yourself. When you're a business owner, essentially what I interpret from that, and this is how I would say most people think, including myself, is the self-employed person is like, you typically think of people that are do jobs that are like trades, like electrician, plumber, those type of things is what we tend to think about in terms of self-employed. And what I mean by that is we tend to think of it as somebody who goes and becomes proficient at something and then runs a business, but it's not really a business. They don't, and that's the thing. I guess that's really the message I'm trying to get, is self-employed typically don't run their career, their work, whatever you want to call it, like a business. They run it like somebody who's kind of like, well, yeah, I work for myself. I do what I want to do, and that. Versus a business owner, we look at as somebody who's more successful and they're growing and constantly getting bigger. Go ahead.
So I think that it was interesting when you asked that question. I kind of applied our situation, like how we are self-employed and how George Morris owns Century 21. So I think that was in my mind, like, he's the business owner. He's the one who has like the infrastructure to give us what we need. But as we're being self-employed, we're literally only facilitating our own specific smaller business where he's kind of overseeing more. But I definitely see how you can kind of get lost in the meaning of being self-employed, because like, you are the business owner. That is your business, but you can definitely look at it like, hey, I'm self-employed. I'm independent, I do my own thing.
That's right.
You still are a business owner.
That's right. And that's what, so thank you. Because I'm always worried that I don't convey that well enough for people to get what I'm trying to say, is because from today forward, don't think of yourself as a self-employed person. Think of yourself as being a business owner. Now, let me say one other thing. Here's the other thing that I think differentiates the business owner from the self-employed. Now, one of the things, after I worked at the grocery store, one of the jobs that I did between that and then when I worked at the bank was I did construction. So I worked for two different guys that did remodeling / building houses, kind of just construction stuff. And one of them I would looking back today, I would say one of them was a business owner. The other one was self-employed. Now, here's what I mean, which is going to what you said, James, which is right on. The difference is the guy that I look at, looking back now, I could say was a business owner. He now has builds subdivisions, like it's a bigger thing, versus this guy still today, and he is probably fairly close to retirement. But when I worked for this guy, what happened was I actually got married and went on my honeymoon. I came back and went to work the first day after, and I was working for this guy, and he goes, hey, I don't have any more work, so you might want to go find a new job. So I was kind of like, I just barely got married and now I don't even have a job. So, but here's what I would say is he still works kind of from job to job. The guy, and what I don't want you guys to do is to think like a self-employed. But I know most people come into real estate thinking, I'm going to go be self-employed, I'm going to be my own boss and blah, 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 which is great. But they also then are thinking, well, I want to go make all this money. Well, part of the difference is you got to quit thinking like a self-employed person and start to think like a business owner. So now that leads us to the next piece. part of what I think the difference is, the guy that I worked for doing construction that was this, that is now, I would look at it and say very successful, makes a ton of money versus this guy still barely gets by. That's kind of part of the difference is typically we look at the people who are self-employed and they survive.
Yeah.
And I don't want to like, obviously there are people that would say they're self-employed and they make a ton of money. I'm not doing that. But most of the time when I draw this out, the way I think, the way you think is this person is the one who's just, they're on their own and they're, you know, like you said, it's, they come and be an agent here and that's it. Versus the business owner is going to tend to look at it a little bit differently of like, I'm creating a business that I want to grow and it should continually every year be growing. Like, I mean, imagine who like Google or Apple, if I was the CEO and I walked into the board meeting and I said to the board, hey guys, so yeah, last year we had a pretty good year, but this year our goal is to just basically make the same amount of money we did last year.
We'll be happy.
You would be happy?
No, I'm saying that's what he would say. Like, we'll be happy.
Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah, well, you know, it was a good year, so
Yeah.
we'll be good with that. If you were the board of directors, how would you feel about me as the CEO?
Get you out of there.
Yeah, you'd be like, nope, new
Yeah,
CEO,
we want someone reaching, not just
Yeah.
saying it.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So part of it is, part of what I guess I'm saying is, most people come into real estate and they approach it as a self-employed, meaning they don't even put together a business plan at all.
Yeah.
And so to me, here's what I would say the difference is, as I look at the people who I would relate to as being a self-employed person versus the people I relate to as being a business owner, the difference is the one puts together a plan, they have a schedule that they're going to follow, and the other, the self-employed, doesn't have a schedule. So in fact, actually, let me even say it this way. I just got a new air conditioner put in at my house this week. When I called the guy, which was a referral from an agent here at the office that was like, here's who I like to use. So anyway, I called up, had this guy come out. Now, here's the interesting thing. Looking back now, and I didn't think of this till just now, but I've been dealing with a guy that's self-employed, even though, and here's the thing, we usually think of business owner as has employees. This guy had employees. But here's the interesting thing. So I call up this guy to come out and to give me a bid on, hey, I need a new air conditioner. Come give me a bid. He shows up, he first texts me and says, I will be to your house on Monday between, and I want to say he said 9 and 11. No, 8 and 10. I'll be there between 8 and 10. So I told my wife, well, I'll just go to work late. I'll work from home until 10 when he gets here. So Monday morning comes, I'm sitting there and 9 o'clock comes and he's still not there. It's now almost 10 o'clock. So I shoot the guy a text. Hey, just confirming that you were going to be here by 10 o'clock today. And he writes back, oh no, I thought it was going to be in the afternoon. And I was like, scroll up.
Wow.
Like just scroll up in your text and you can see the last text said, I'll be there on Monday between 8 and 10, which is fine. I mean, I understand that happens. I'm guilty of, I put it in my calendar wrong, whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm no worries. But then he then reschedules and says, I'll be there on this day between 8 and 10. Now, here's where I guess I'm struggling with this. When do you think that guy starts his day? Like what time in the morning do you think he starts his day?
9, 10. I mean, like stars and going to work. Like,
Yeah, isn't going to work.
clocks in, yeah, like
Yeah.
9, 10, like.
See, and my guess would be the reason he said sometime between 8 and 10, he probably starts at 8 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
So shouldn't you be able to, your first appointment of the day, be like, I'll be there at 8 o'clock?
Time block.
'Cause I was the
If you're
first-
committing to those certain times, it's not just a, you know, it shouldn't be like, oh, well, I'll be here between these times. It should be like, this is when I'm gonna start this job, and then this is when I'm gonna start the next one.
Yeah, and that's just,
It's a
that's where I was,
plan.
especially, and I get it, that if that type of a thing, it might take longer to do a particular job. So your second job of the day, you might have to, I mean, no different than us. Like, I guess stop and think about when you're scheduling showings.
Yeah.
Can't you tell the first house, I'll be there basically, like you could say, I'll be there between 9 and 9:30 because yeah, your client might show up late, but you're going to show up at 9, aren't you?
Yeah.
But then your second house, you might have to do we'll be here between this time and this time because you don't know how long the
Yeah.
client's going to be Like some clients can walk through a house and be like, nope, not interested. Others like have to spend 20 minutes there. So I get it that you do have to put in a block of time, except for, to me, I'm like, if I'm the first appointment of the day, you should be able to say, I'll be there at this time. Like, shouldn't you?
Yeah.
You think?
So here's the thing. So then he comes out, he gives us the bid and then says, okay. And we put together the date, which was just this past Monday, that he's going to come and do it. And I said, okay, well, so what time will you be here to do it? And he says between 8 and 10. And I'm like, okay, so how long should we plan on this job taking? It's going to take pretty much the whole day. Okay. But again, in my head, and this was more unconscious than consciously done, but I'm sitting there thinking the difference of this and this, because I'm like, it's the first job of the day. How do you not know if you're going to be there at 8 or you're going to be there at 10? And again, I get it. Like, I know sometimes there might be somebody watching that's like, well, you don't understand. He had to first go and get the parts and blah, blah. Like, I get that. But I still would say then you could at least say between 8 and 8:30 or 8 and 9 at the most. Like, why would it be 8 and 10? And so to me, again, I come back to that's the difference of a business owner and a self-employed. The self-employed is going to do like, I'm going to wake up when I wake up, and then I'm going to kind of just see when I get out of the house. And
That's the thing, they don't want to commit. That's such a wide open variable.
Yeah.
They might have a different feeling in the morning, like 8,
Yeah.
9:45 is feeling good.
yeah, I decided to stay up late last night, so I'm going to sleep in versus the business owner. So, and I always, just because I can see Chick-fil-A out the window is the first place that I see. Like, then I go to, okay, now let's talk about a business owner. So let's look out here at Chick-fil-A. Like, do their hours on the door say we open somewhere between 8 and 10?
No.
We'll close, probably at 3 or 4.
Good
Like,
luck, catch us.
yeah,
During
like if,
COVID, maybe.
what?
During COVID.
Yeah, good point. During COVID, that was true.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, since you brought that up, I got to say this. Here's the thing that I think is hilarious. During COVID, like, there was all these jokes about like getting boosters in people's arms. They should hire Chick-fil-A to figure it out because during COVID, like I have 3 boys. My middle son, his goal is he wants to be a Chick-fil-A owner. And so his first job, his only job he's ever had, I think, other than mowing some lawns, is Chick-fil-A. But he's working towards becoming a Chick-fil-A owner. And it was interesting during, now I'm not sure why I'm telling you. Oh, I know why I'm telling you this, because of that, the owner of the store that he works at has shared like a lot of stuff with him, but they killed it during COVID. And the reason Chick-fil-A did so well is because they figured out how to get you through. Like, I remember times looking out this window and seeing like even still today, there are just lines of cars out there at Chick-fil-A. Yeah, you can go get in line there and you're going to be out of that line in how long?
Yeah, quick.
Yeah, less than 10 minutes is you're going to be out of that line. Versus a month or so ago, I was down in St. George, and the Popeyes chicken down there still is, their dining room still not open, which I'm like, and I'm sure it's because they can't get people to work, but it's still not open. So I jumped in a line with 10 cars and I was like, oh, this shouldn't be bad, because like I'm conditioned of like, it should be fast. I was 40 minutes in line with 10 cars. And I was like, this is not Chick-fil-A. So, but here's my point of that is just think about the way a business works. Is the business is going to have a plan. The business is going to have a schedule. And here's the other thing. So here's what I think is funny. Chick-fil-A did so well. So what did McDonald's, what has every other fast food place? What did they do? They were like, oh, look how good Chick-fil-A is doing. People must like a chicken sandwich with a pickle. And so now every one of these fast food stores has a chicken sandwich with a pickle. It wasn't the pickle why people were getting in line there. Why were people getting in line? Because you knew, I don't care how long that line is, I can get through and out of it quick. It wasn't the pickle, but yet every other store is like, oh, we got to add a pickle to our chicken sandwich. It's stupid. And I hate pickles too, but all right. So, but here's the thing. And the other reason I like using Chick-fil-A as this example is, and I know there are some people that don't like Chick-fil-A and don't agree with how they run business, and that's fine. I'm not saying that I agree or disagree with how they run it, but here's what I like. They know how they were gonna do their business, and that's how they do it.
And you execute it.
They put together a plan and then they executed exactly that, meaning, and here's the point. So Chick-fil-A is not open on Sunday, right? Yet, here's the interesting thing. In Atlanta, which is where they're based, Chick-fil-A put a Chick-fil-A inside of the Mercedes-Benz Stadium where the Atlanta Falcons play. What day are most of the football games on?
Sunday. Oh.
What day is Chick-fil-A not open?
Sunday.
So I was like, this will be interesting to see when Chick-fil-A goes into the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Are they going to be open on Sunday for the football games? What do you think?
No,
No,
really, I didn't really know.
they're not open on Sunday.
That's their business plan.
That's not their business plan. So that's part of what I guess that if you don't get anything else out of what I'm teaching you guys today, it's this. Treat yourself as I'm a business owner. I'm not a self-employed person. I'm going to put together a plan and then I'm executing that plan. And I don't care whatever, every other fast food place is open on Sunday and they're like, we don't, doesn't fit into how we want to run our business. And so they don't open, like it doesn't matter. Even when they throw it inside of a stadium, that most of the football games are on Sunday. Now, there are other events and obviously that's why they put it in there, but they know what their plan is. I mean, the other thing too that's interesting is that when it comes to hiring people, and like I said, because of my son's aspirations to be a Chick-fil-A owner, he's gone to Atlanta to do training and stuff with them. And when it comes to hiring people, it's the same concept. It's kind of like if you don't fit what they're looking for, and meaning what they're looking for is somebody who will engage with people, that will talk to them and try to, make them feel comfortable being there. So they know what works, and then they just are like, this is what we do. So that's what I want you guys to take from this is from today forward, you're not a self-employed, I'm a business owner. And as a business owner, I got to have a plan. And so that's where we're going to get into the business planning, and we'll talk about schedule 2 in just a little bit. But before that, let's finish off this cash flow quadrant. That's the main part of the message I wanted you to get, but there's still some more. So typically this is kind of how it goes, is people go from being an employee to being self-employed to being a business owner to then, what do you think's next? And you guys that have read the book, do you remember what's next?
I want to say like a CEO, like an executive.
Investor.
Good job, yes, investor. What's the difference between a business owner and an investor?
An investor just puts capital to create it, and then business owner executes.
Good, yeah. So a business owner is going to be involved in the day-to-day running of the business versus the investor is more letting his money do the work. His or her, sorry. His or her money do the work. They're letting their money go do the work. And in fact, I don't remember even where I heard this, but you almost want to think of it as in the investor category is when your money is like these little soldiers that go off to war that you hope come back from the war, but not only that, but bring some friends with them, right? So
Great, okay.
So part of what I want you guys to do as well as we put together the business plan, which we're going to start to get into here in a minute, is keep in mind that yes, you're a business owner, but the objective is for us to become an investor. The objective is not to stay as a business owner forever. Now, you might want to stay involved in doing that, but ultimately we want to become an investor. Now, you probably haven't met yet, but have you met Phil Harvey? Do you know who Phil
I
Harvey
know
is?
who he is, but I haven't met him.
You haven't met him. Okay. So we have an agent. So for you guys that are on Zoom too, we've got an agent here at the office that his name is Phil Harvey. Phil, and in fact, if you want to go and look at the class that he taught, if you go onto our YouTube channel, so go to the Everest YouTube channel, which is Century 21 Everest Training. So just go to YouTube and search Century 21 Everest Training, which I'm a little worried of sharing what I'm about to share because all of a sudden everybody on Zoom will be streaming this instead of listening to me. But what happened? Hey, Miriam.
Yeah, what's up?
I'm just teaching some new top producers,
Oh, okay.
Hey.
new business owners.
I've been in here.
I know.
You guys are awesome.
So anyway, he came and taught a class where basically he was saying, let me tell you what I've done over the last 10 years. oh, and this was a number of years ago now, but Phil, right after the crash of 2008, 2009, Phil had decided I want to create wealth. And so what he did is he started buying properties, fixing them up, buying them, fixing up. Then he would buy them, fix them up and keep them as a rental, buy some more, fix them and sell them, buy, fix and sell, buy, fix and sell. Then he would keep one as a rental. Well, he built it up to a number of years ago. And I haven't asked him, I need to, next time I see him, I'll remember to ask him this, but he had built it up to where his passive income was over $25,000 a month coming in just off of his investment properties. So that was the net to him. So that's not the gross revenue. That's the net, was $25,000 a month. Well, what he decided to do, and this was probably 2 or 3 years ago now, is he decided that rather than his kids going to school and learning about like history in school, he was like, I'm going to go actually teach them and let them go experience and see it. So he went and bought a humongous motorhome and said, I'm pulling my kids out of school for a year, and we are going to spend a year driving around the country, stopping and looking at like where history took place so they can actually experience it and see it. And he could do that because he had reached this status of being an investor. So on the YouTube channel, he talks through some of the strategies and things that he did to do that. So part of what I guess I'm saying is I want you guys, again, today forward, you're a business owner, but start thinking like, I want to become the investor. I want to create the scenario that I don't have to keep working forever, that I can get my money to go do the work for me. So how do we do that? And that's what we're going to talk about for a minute here as part of our business plan, is how do we make that happen? So ultimately, well, I'm just getting to the best part. I'm just kidding. I'm teasing.
You guys have an awesome day.
All right, so I'm gonna hand to you guys here the business plan. Hopefully you guys on Zoom, when I sent out the email, hopefully got it. If not, throw your email address in the chat box and I'll send it to you after. But okay, so we're gonna go through and talk about this business plan here. But we're not gonna, the idea of today is to get you started on the business plan. The idea is not, we're not gonna fill this out today, but we're gonna get it started. Now, so here's the thing. Part of what you want to do though, is you need to be planning. So as we put together this business plan, if you're gonna become the investor, we gotta have that be part of the plan when we create our business plan, okay? So here's where I wanna start with actually. So what I would love to hear, so for you guys on Zoom, either unmute or throw it in the chat box. Trey, did I not send it to you? I just saw you put your email in there. Maybe I did.
Yeah, I didn't get an email at all.
You didn't? Okay, sorry. I'll send it to you.
Thank
So,
you.
now what was I saying? What did I just say?
You wanted to hear from us about.
Oh, yeah. Yes, thank you. So you guys on Zoom, either throw it in the chat box or unmute. What, before this class, because you probably have changed, so you can't answer based on what if you've changed your mind already. Before this class started, if I would have asked, what is your goal? What's your goal in terms of income that you want to make in this, either the next 12 months or, by the end of the year? So, and I want to hear from everybody. So either unmute on Zoom or throw it in the chat box.
So my goal was, unfortunately, it wasn't very clear. I think that was the problem, but
Okay.
I would have been content with netting 6 figures for the first time.
Okay, cool.
Just
Okay, good. We'll see if that changes here in a minute.
Same, I was like 100,000.
Okay, good. What about you guys on Zoom? Unmute or throw it in the chat box. 600,000, okay.
That
Sure, bro.
bad.
Delaney's is 150.
When I first came in, I had said only 80,000.
Say that again, Bowen.
When I first started a few months ago, I said 80,000 a year.
80,000, okay. Trey, what about you? 60,000. Okay, cool. Yeah, and here's the thing. I don't really care. Like, it doesn't matter to me what the number is, but we'll see if it changes now. So, because now what I'm gonna do is have you go through, and here's the problem. When I started in real estate, and I shared with you guys already, but when I left the bank, I didn't leave the bank thinking I want to go make 60, which was my uncle had said he paid 260 and 200. I was like, I want to make $100,000 a year. Now, here's the interesting thing. That was over 25 years ago. And here's what's fascinating to me is for 25 years that I've been in the business, and for the last 15 plus that I've been training, that number hasn't changed. Like the most common number that I hear is I want to make $100,000, which there's nothing wrong with that. Like I'm not saying anything negative about it. Here's what I'm saying though. There are so many people that come into the business with that being their goal. Yet, do you know what the average income is of real estate agents? Now, when I say average, here's what I mean. Take everybody who considers themselves a full-time agent, not part-time, get rid of the part-time, full-time agents across the country, the average income for those people of what they actually make, not goals, what they actually make
45.
is about $45,000 a year.
I thought it was a really low ball again.
No, it's probably about $40,000 to $45,000 a year is what it is. So yet all of them have a goal of making 100,000. So why do they not do it? Well, here's why. The problem with the numbers that you guys gave me, which I have no issue with the numbers, but the problem with it is that they don't mean anything. When you gave the number, it doesn't really mean anything. Now, so for James, can I use yours for a minute?
Yeah.
Because you said for the first time ever to make 100,000. So
Net 100,000.
net 100,000.
I get 100,000, but I want a net.
Net. Okay, good. Okay, good. But to me, that's still not going to be enough to drive you to do it.
Big enough why.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so this ties back to what we talked about on Tuesday, which is you got to understand the purpose, the vision, the why. Now, so what I'm going to give to you now is if you'll do the process that I'm going to give to you, will make it actually mean something to where you're more likely to achieve it. Okay, so here's what it looks like. Now, for you guys that were here on Tuesday, we'll remember I gave you the first part of this already. So you want to start with how much money do you just need on a monthly basis? On a monthly basis, how much money do you need to just pay your bills? Okay, to just survive.
And is this any of this in here? Or is this
Not yet. We're gonna use this to decide what to put on there.
Perfect.
Yep. So yeah, so on the business plan, the first thing up there has like previous year's numbers, and then section 2 is the total commissions earned. So what your goal will be. This is how we're going to decide what the goal is.
Perfect.
Now, because here's the other thing. The goals that you guys gave me, everybody, and to some extent, yes, maybe you just rounded it off, but I'm going to ask you after today, don't round it off. Don't round the number off. Leave it whatever it comes up to be. Don't round it up to the next highest thing.
Okay.
Leave it exactly what it is. Now here's so here's what you're gonna do. So first start with just how much money do I need on a monthly basis to pay for car, housing, food, all clothes, all that kind of stuff. What do you need on a monthly basis? Or you could do it annual is fine too. I mean, even if you do it monthly, we are gonna annualize it either. So either way you put it, it's fine. But if you figure it out monthly, then times it by 12, because that's what we're gonna need annually.
Okay.
All right. Next, the next thing that I want you to do before you put together and write down a number of what your goal is for commissions earned is the next thing you want to do is look at this. I want you to look at and say, do you have any debts that you want to pay off? So if you have a credit card, student loans, anything that way, any type of consumer debt, how much of that do you want to pay off in the next year is where you want to then look at and say, okay, how much money and debts do I have that I want to eliminate this year? And if it's all of it, great. If it's a portion of it, like whatever it is, but just figure out how much debt do I want to eliminate this year? Write it down. Okay. Next, the next thing that I want you to look at is, let's do trips/vacations. Now, looking at my group, I don't know Delaney, but I know everyone else. So I don't know how funny you guys are going to think this is as I look at the group, but we'll see. Do you know what the difference between a trip and a vacation is?
Oh, you're asking us, sorry.
Yeah, but do you guys, what's the difference between a trip and a vacation?
The intention behind it. So I would say if it's a vacation, it's purely intent to relax. A trip could be business related, it could be family related, funeral, I mean,
Okay,
personal.
good. You're pretty close. Here's how I define it, the difference. The kids go on a trip, no kids go on a vacation.
What if
So I don't know if
you have
anybody,
kids?
that's why,
Okay.
that's why I was saying, you might not think this is funny.
Okay.
If you don't have kids, you won't get that joke,
I
but
see.
if you have kids, you will. But yeah, if for my wife and I, if we take our kids with us, we're going on a trip. Next week, when we go to Hawaii, that's a vacation. We're not taking kids. All right. So, but here's the thing. So let me give you the next piece of this. The next piece of this is, what trips or vacations do you want to do? Now, here's where this becomes interesting is, here's what I want you to do, is you're going to actually plan the trip or the vacation. You're going to plan it. Before you write down what your goal for commission is, you got to go actually plan this trip. So let me tell you what that looks like. So, so let me use the example. Actually, I'm very impressed. My middle son, the one that wants to become the Chick-fil-A owner, is right now in London, England. Him and his wife are in London. He works at Chick-fil-A. She works as like a receptionist at an orthodontist office, but they've saved up enough money to go, and they're now in London for England for a week. Well, the reason that happened is because over a year ago, they sat down and did what I'm actually asking you guys to do, is if you will actually plan the trip. So over a year ago, they sat down and were like, okay, how much is airfare going to be? So they got on and researched to figure out approximately. Now, again, you don't know what it's going to be a year from now, but you're going to have a ballpark of, okay, if I do it so far out, and if you go on these days, because like typically if you're flying on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, it's going to be cheaper than flying on like a Saturday. So they planned all that out and actually left on their trip on Tuesday, and they knew exactly where they're staying. They know all the activities they're doing, everything. And he knew exactly how much this trip was going to cost a year ago. So that over the last year, they were able to then plan accordingly. Now, so let me give you one other story. So when I first came to Everest, and so I have been training, I already mentioned, for over 15 years. I've been here at Everest coming up on 7 years. This summer will be 7 years that I've been here. The very first class that I taught of this in business planning, I was taking the class through all of this stuff. We got to this and I did my same joke about, the difference between a trip and a vacation. And there was a lady in the class from our Orem office. And she said to me, I have never taken my family on and she said it as a vacation, which again, I would have said a trip, but she said, yes, growing up, like we took our kids up in the mountains and went camping and stuff like that. But she's like, I never like really took my kids like on a trip that would be fun. And she said, so one of my goals, so she had been a stay-at-home mom. Her kids are all married and gone now when she got her real estate license. She's sitting in the class and she says, part of why I came into real estate is I want to make enough money because my husband made enough for us just to survive. I want to make enough money now that we could actually go and do some stuff. Okay. So I told her, here's what I want you to do is I want you to plan it. And right in the class, I said to her, okay, let's do it right now. So I said, where are you going to take the kids? She said, I want to take them to Orlando and go to Disney World. I said, okay, here's your assignment then. I told her, go find out how much the tickets are to go to Disney World, how many people you're taking with you, and how much the tickets are, multiply it to figure out how much that is. How much is the airfare? And I said, are you going to pay for their airfare to go? Yep, I want to pay for their airfare. Okay, great. Figure out how much that's going to cost. Then I said, find out what hotel you're going to stay at. And are you paying for their rooms? Yep, I want to pay for their rooms. Okay, great. How much is that going to be? And I just said, go plan the whole trip. Get the whole thing. Like, this is how much the airfare, this is how much the hotel is, how much BART tickets are you paying for their food or not? Like, decide all of that, research it, figure it out, and then write down how much that's going to cost and write it down right there. She said, okay, I'm going to do it. Now, fast forward about a year and a half. About a year and a half later, I'm at one of the summits over at the Larry Miller or the Salt Lake Community College campus, the Larry Miller one where we usually do it, most of the time do it. She comes walking up to me and she says, I don't know if you remember me. And I said, oh yeah, I remember you. And she said, I just wanted to report back to you that 2 months ago, I took my whole family on that trip that you made me plan during the class. And I was like, that's awesome. And she said, yeah, not only that, but she said, I made $120,000 in real estate. Now, here's the interesting thing. If you had been in the class sitting here the day that she said all this, and you had asked me after the class, do you think she'll do it? I would have been like, no, I don't think she will. And I had no reason other than just based on experience. I'm like, I just don't necessarily believe that she will do it. And if you would have said, hey, a year from today, she's going to have made $120,000, I would have been like, yeah, I don't know. Yet she did it. Now, here's the thing. I will tell you the reason she did is because what happens when you go plan the trip like that? When you actually research it, and we're going to stay at this hotel, and this is what we're going to do. And
I think it makes the why a little bit more real, right? So every single day that you wake up, it's like there's actual intention behind your actions rather than, because I think that's my hardest thing is it's so easy to throw out a number that which you want to achieve, but you don't break down the real why behind it. And it's easy for that to get lost. Right?
that's right.
And you just start going through the motions again rather than being intentional with everything.
You got it. That's
Gives
exactly
the vision for it.
That's right. It gets you excited. It's like you said, all of a sudden it's like, no, I got to go get on the phone because I want to do that trip. That's going to be so fun. So yeah, it gives you the vision to go and do it. Okay, so good. So that's the next step in this is you're going to go out and plan that. Okay, next. And I'm just going to put it here as things, I guess. But what things do you want to buy? A new car, new gadgets, new golf clubs, whatever. What things do you want to buy in the next year? And then guess what? You get the same assignment. If you're wanting a new car, then your assignment is go down, test drive it, figure out with the options that you want, all that kind of stuff. How much is this going to cost? Then you're going to go, okay, how are you going to finance it or not? Are you going to pay cash? Whatever that looks like. And then you're going to write down the number. And it's the same concept. Maybe even take a picture of yourself standing by the car that then you can post of okay, I'm making my phone calls because I want to buy that. So same thing with the trip. As you plan it, print out a copy of the hotel or whatever it is, the beach that you're going to. Put all that stuff there. That's to me, when people do vision boards, that's the struggle I even have with a vision board is usually people grab a magazine and look through it. Oh, that looks good. I want that. But no, instead, create your vision board like this, where it's no, I've already researched the trip. This is how much it's going to cost. Here's what it is. Here's the car that I want to buy. Here's the, whatever it is.
Could things be also so my biggest thing is I want to invest, right? I want to become the investor. So
Nope, we're going to do that next.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask, so that wouldn't count like an investment property,
Nope.
like a house. Okay.
Well, it could, I guess. It could. But I'll show you where that's probably going to play in next. So, but at this point, it would be saying, okay, what are the things that I want to buy? Okay. All right. So now that we've done that, what you want to do then is total that number up, but we're still not done. Okay. So once you've done that, now I'm going to go back to talking about Jim Rohn for a second, and actually Jim Rohn got this out of another book that I'll recommend to you if you haven't read it. The book is written by Og Mandino. Like OG, the real OG, just kidding. Og Mandino. But the name of the book is The Richest Man in Babylon.
Oh.
Have you read it?
Yeah, just you to give me that book.
Okay, good. Yeah, it's not a thick book. You can read it in a couple days, easy. But so what I'm going to share with you comes out of that. So, and that is that this part of your income should equate to, is where 70% of what you're going to make should be this.
Oh, okay. So I see why it's so important to be so specific now.
Yep. Because, and then as you total it up, we're 70% to what your goal is going to be. So now let's talk about what's the other 30%. The other 30% looks like this. So the first thing is charity. So in this book, The Richest Man in Babylon, he says 10% then of your income should go to a charity. So just you decide what it is, what you want to.
10%, sorry.
Yeah, 10%. So you figure out what you want that to look like. Whether it's United Way, pick a charity. I don't care what it is, but 10%. The idea on that is he says we want to be giving back to help other people that aren't as fortunate as we are. And even if you feel like, well, I'm not fortunate, I'm one of the unfortunate, you're still more fortunate than some people. So you want to do 10% to some type of a charity. Next. So the next 10% is going to go to, hey, Ruby, real quick. Sorry, pause real quick. Do you know what happened to the thing? Did somebody use it for a drawing? Well, it was here, and then since the manager thing, it disappeared. Did somebody use it for a drawing in your manager? No. So somebody just stole it. That's annoying. Okay, all right.
I was checking for Delaney. She's there.
Yeah, she's there.
Okay.
Delaney, Ruby was checking on you, so you passed the test. Good job.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Hi, Ruby.
She said hi as she's walking out. I don't know if
Oh,
she's gonna text you in a minute.
okay.
All right, so the next 10%, it needs to go,
Isn't Russ amazing?
no response, so.
Yes, this is amazing. I love it.
Okay, thanks, Delaney. Okay,
You're welcome.
the next part then is gonna be passive income. So the next 10% of your income should go to, or of what you're gonna earn should be going to passive investments. So,
10%.
sorry. So
Interesting.
let me make sure I'm saying this
Yeah.
correctly. So we're not done.
Yeah, okay.
So 10% of what you're gonna put down as your goal for commission should go to passive investing. So what would be passive investing?
Like stocks.
Okay, good. Yeah, stocks would be passive. Good. So here's how I want you to think about it. Passive investing is somebody else is managing the money. So you're giving the money to somebody else to worry about the management of that. Now, here's the idea of that. In the book, The Richest Man in Babylon, what he says is the reason for that is, well, in fact, let me make it even more true to us for real estate. So most of the people that we help in real estate, buyers that buy houses, end up getting a loan. Where does the money come from when they go get a loan?
Banks.
Okay, it comes from banks. And where do the banks get the money?
Federal government.
From the people.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, aren't they using?
So to some extent, which I don't recommend this, but if you just went and put money in a savings account at a bank, what do they do with that
They
money?
take it and reinvest it to someone else.
Reinvest it.
Yeah.
That's right. They go and give out loans to people to go buy cars and all that kind of stuff. They use your money.
And we get a tiny percentage of that.
Yeah, you get a very small
We're
percentage.
losing
of-
money with inflation.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's true. So now, but here's the thing. What would happen if nobody put their money in the bank?
They couldn't give out loans
Which would do what for our real estate
or
career?
destroy it.
So to some extent, part of why we want to do 10% into passive investing is to keep the economy going.
Mm,
So part of it, no different than donating 10% to a charity to help out people that are less fortunate. Part of the passive investing is us doing our part to keep the economy rolling as
that
well.
is interesting. Wow. Okay.
Yep. And then the last area is 10% for active investing. So we just talked about passive investing. So what would be the opposite of that, which is active investing?
Like flipping houses.
Yeah.
or-
Perfect.
I would say it's the exact opposite. You using your own money to make money.
That's right. You're using the money, you're involved with it. And the best example is exactly that of, because we're in real estate, when you come across a really good deal on a house, that you should be the one to say, I'm gonna buy it and then fix it up and turn around and sell it, or buy it, fix it up and keep it as an investment property, whatever it is. But that's how we want to do this. So 10% is kind of like, let somebody else manage it. And then another 10% should be of like, I'm going to build this an account for active investing. So now here's the thing. If you don't have that money right now, then what you want to do is start saving it so that you can, and just look for opportunities along the way that you could buy something, fix it up and turn around and sell it. Or let me give you another quick example of where I did this. This goes back many years ago, but I don't even remember how this actually even came up, but we were in, I can't remember if we were at Disneyland or Disney World, but we're one of the two. And we had seen my oldest son, which you know Douglas, right?
Yeah,
Our
yeah.
oldest, yeah. So you probably haven't met him yet, but he's an agent here as well. But he loved Toy Story, and we were there, and there was this Zurg that he wanted to buy from the gift shop. And I think I want to say we're at Disney World, but he wanted to buy this Zurg. And my wife was like, I'll bet we could find it for cheaper somewhere else. Well, so this was back, like I said, many years ago when an eBay was like really huge at the time of as where people were buying and selling stuff. I don't know, is it still big? I mean, I couldn't tell you the last time I went on there to buy anything. Now it's Amazon, but
I use it.
do you? Okay. So part of this would still be potentially a good way for you to do this and to make some money. In fact, remind me if I forget when I get done with this story to tell you the story about the lady that I helped just sell a house that does this with books. But so we go back to the hotel and I jump on my computer and I go on to eBay to see how much could I buy one of these Zurgs for. And I jump on eBay and it was like almost double the price because you couldn't buy it anywhere but the Disney World. Yeah, the gift shop there. So if anybody wanted it, they had to go on to eBay. It was the only other place to do it. So I told my wife, we're like buying 50 of these things. And my wife was like, no way, you're not doing that. And I'm like, I want to buy every one of them in the store and I'm going to go put them on eBay to sell them. And she was like, we're going to buy one for Douglas and you can buy one. And I was like, okay, fine. So I bought it, but then I went and put it on and we sold it for double. And I was like, see, I told you we should have done it. So, but that's the idea of active investing. When you come across something that's a good deal. All right. So now let me tell you about the lady. The book. So I was helping a lady in North Salt Lake. They decided they wanted to move to Houston. Went out to their house and looking at her house, and we go down in the basement. There's just like books everywhere, like most I've ever seen of books everywhere. And I was like, "What are all these books? Like, have you read all these?" And she goes, "No." She said, "I go out and just find books at like DI or the thrift stores, whatever." She said, "I just go out and I just kind of have an eye for looking at a book and being like, I'll bet that's worth some money." And she said, so I just will buy it for the $1 or $2 at the DI. And then I go back home and I'll look and then she'll go put them on. I probably was eBay, actually, I think she said. And she's like, I put it on eBay and a lot of times I can sell it 50, 60, because it's a rare book that people just don't know about. That's the idea of this is like, find some things that you can do that to where you can say, okay, I'm going to take this money and then invest it. Now let me go back to Phil Harvey for a second. Part of what he would look for on these properties, if he was going to buy one and fix it up and sell it or eventually keeping them, part of what he was doing was looking at, can I get a 10% return on my money? So ultimately, that's what I would say is you want to look for with this on the active investing is, if I go buy, and we'll just say it was $100, it wasn't, but if I'm going to go buy this Zurg at Disney World for $100, which I want to say it was more like it was 40 or something. But if I go buy that for 100, can I turn around and sell it for at least 110? If you can get a 10% return and you're very confident in a 10% return, do the deal. Like that's the idea on buying a house to fix it up and sell it is, can I get at least a 10% return on it and be conservative on that, meaning like it's great if you go and do a better job with it. So now this whole thing was really just a commercial, okay, for this. All of this story was to lead up to this. Until you're to the point that you can buy that house, call me. When you come across the deal,
and we can party. Okay.
Yes, and call me and we'll figure out it. I'll let you represent me and get paid the commission and all that. So now I say that somewhat jokingly, but if you come across a good deal and you can't buy it, call me. Okay, I'll buy it or I'll get somebody with me to buy it.
But I think more than anything, like just what you said, like if you're not in a position where you can, this is why it's so important to get that clarity, because it's like then you come across it like you want to do everything you can to get it, like you just can't because you're not, like if you're not in that position yet for whatever reason. I think it just, this format just gives you so much more clarity on why your goals are what they are.
That's right. Yep, that's exactly right. Thank you. So now, so let me give you a quick story on that, of the most recent one that I did. So a good friend of mine that, my first house that I built, and I didn't build it, but had built, met this guy that lived in the cul-de-sac with me that we just became friends, and still now over however many years it's been, 25-ish years, still friends. And he had called me not long ago and said, hey, he lives in St. George now. He said, my dad lives in North Salt Lake, or Woods Cross actually, but he said he found out he has cancer. He's probably not going to be around a ton longer, so I'm going to move him to St. George. Will you meet me out at his house and tell me, you know, what you think we could sell it for? So I, you know, run some rough comps just based on the area and stuff. I drive over there, I meet with my buddy, and we're looking at the house, and it had a flat roof. It was built prior to 1978. All of the trim on the soffit and fascia is chipped and peeling, which, so pre-1978, chipped and peeling paint, what's the concern? Lead-based paint,
Yeah.
lead-based paint, right?
Anyway,
So I say to my buddy, like, here's the thing. If we put it on the market as it is, the person buying this house is more than likely going to get an FHA loan. If they're getting an FHA loan, the appraiser comes and sees chipped and peeling paint, they're going to say, you got to get that done. They're going to want it done like with hazmat suits on and sanders that is a vacuum, that so that you're not getting lead all over and stuff. So I'm like, so that's going to be a concern. The other concern is going to be, it's a flat roof. Do you know when the last time for me, anytime I list a property that has a flat roof, I always ask them, when was the last time you had the roof redone? Because my experience with this is, it seems like every flat roof that I have ever sold on a house, if they have not just redone the roof within the last few years, the appraiser comes out and says, like, it needs a new roof. So I just said to him, when's the last time he did it? And he's like, I have no idea. And I'm like, well, do you think it was in the last 2 or 3 years? Oh, no, I'm sure it's at least 5 years. And I'm like, my experience just says it's, and I said, I'm not saying go do it. I'm just saying be prepared when we go to sell it, that the buyer's going to come in and say, we need the flat roof checked. And then they're going to come look at it, and just be prepared. You're going to have to spend the money to do that. And like I said, that's not always the case, but just seems like more times than not, when it's a flat roof, they've had to redo stuff. So I said, so you really, before we list it, I would say, find out on the roof, at least have a roofer come and say, yes, there's at least 2 or 3 years left in the roof. And you need to get the paint and stuff, all that done. And he was like, there's nobody that can do that. Like, I'm gonna either have to pay somebody to do it, or I got to drive up from St. George to do it. And I was like, I know, but like I said, if you don't mind listing it for less, like we could, but just know, like, if you're wanting to get top dollar for the house, like, it's probably, you need to do this stuff. So he says, you know, so anyway, I had told him what I thought the price was of the house. And he said to me, you know, if somebody showed up and just offered my dad X, I think he would just run with it and be as happy as could be. And I was like, are you serious? Because if you're serious, I got somebody that will buy it. Yeah. And he goes, really? And I said, yeah. And he was like, well, let me talk to my dad. And so he talked to his dad, came back. Yeah, if you'll pay X for it, then he'll sell it to you. Okay, done. Sold it, bought it from him, fix it up, turn around, sell it, made good money. So that's the idea of this active investing. So until you're to that point, see, this whole class was just a commercial for me to find houses to invest in. I'm joking. That's not true. But if you do find one, let me know. All right. So now, once we've done this, now we should be able to go, okay, here's how much my goal in terms of income is. Now, James, since I was picking on you, I'll do it again. What do you think that by the time you put all this stuff in there, that it's going to end up being exactly a net of 100,000?
Not even close.
Okay, so just guessing, where do you think it would be?
I'm thinking closer to 175.
Okay, so now here's the other thing. So I'll just use that number. It's going to probably come out to be 175,000, and then I'm making this part up, $642.
Yeah.
That's what I want you to write down. Don't write down, don't go, 175 is good enough, and write down 175. You write down $175,642, or if it was 173, you write down $173,642. That's my goal. Now, why? Why do I say leave it at that? Don't round it up.
It makes it so much more purposeful. I just feel like, I don't know, like that, when I look at it like that and just have that in my head, that vision, it just, the why is just so much bigger.
That's right.
So much bigger.
At the end of the day, that's what every one of these dollars represents something at that point. See, before when we just throw out, oh, I want to make $250,000 or $400,000, like, yeah, it sounds great, but it doesn't mean anything. Versus this actually, when you've taken through this exercise and you write down the number, you're like,
Yeah.
okay.
I guess, have you considered, just out of curiosity, savings? Like, why is that not, is that kind of just in your investment side?
Savings, this
Yeah.
is savings right here.
Okay, okay.
Those are savings. That's the idea of that.
Smart, okay.
Yep. So part of what I guess I would say is, here's how I would like to, I'm taking this another level now, since you asked that question. Is that okay?
Yeah,
So for me, kind of here's what I would say. One of the first things you want to do is, when you're putting this together, is you want to start with the passive savings. I mean, and the idea of that, when I say the passive, like, to some extent, even though I know this might not fully make total sense based on what we've already talked about, like, to begin with though, you want to get into just like a savings account, get 1 month's worth of what you need to pay this.
yeah.
Is kind of the first goal is, okay, I first need to get 1 month's worth of money to where if something happened, I've got a month's worth of money. Then from there, build it to where you've got 6 months worth of money.
So I guess that was the biggest reason I asked, because my goal, I've kind of been thinking about my finances a little bit differently, and I would love to have like a 6-month reserve.
Yep.
And I guess versus having that just being put in the bank, right? Or actually having it somewhat work for you. So,
Yeah, so for me, and this is just personal, this is why when I said I'm taking it to the next level, I'm giving you my personal. For me personally, I like the idea of having 6 months worth of money that is accessible. Like, I want it to be something to where, like you said, I could access it. Well, the best example I would use was when COVID hit. Like, I was kind of like, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, I didn't even know if I didn't know if George was going to come to me and be like, hey, we don't need you anymore. See you later, which is fine. But for me, I was like, I want to be in a position that I know I've got 6 months worth of money in a savings account that is accessible. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in a savings account earning 0.25% interest, but somewhere that again, I'm giving you just personal opinion of that's accessible. So even if it was like, okay, 3 months is going to be, or 1 month's in a savings account where I'm getting basically zero interest. And like you said, because of inflation, I'm losing money,
Yeah.
but I've got 1 month's worth of it there. And then, but I want to have the other 5 months to where if I needed it by 6 months, I can get to it. I have access to that money, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's where I think kind of you start on this in terms of that. Now, let me give you one other thing though, which this doesn't work so well with real estate, where we can kind of control our income to some extent. So like somebody, if I was teaching this class to somebody that just was an employee, I would teach it a little bit differently. And then I would say, this is where you want to get to, but you might have to start it at 97,111. Like you might have to do 97% is what I'm going to live on. And then I'll put 1% to charity, 1% to passive, and 1% to active. And then over time, increase that. Now, here's the ideal scenario is really the other thing that after Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that Robert Kiyosaki added is a 5th area to this, which is called being a philanthropist, which is now where you give away your money. And so ultimately what should happen, and again, this goes back to the same idea of hopefully the way you guys are thinking is what should happen with this is that this number, the percentage of my income that's going here every year gets smaller and these are getting bigger to where maybe it's a 20% active, 20% here, 20% charity, and 40% is here. Like ultimately, that's kind of where you want to grow this to, is to where you're saying, okay, this number should be going down and these should be going up every year. The amount I'm donating to charity, passive and active income. That makes sense? That's how, so Phil Harvey, so let me kind of wrap this piece of it with this. With Phil Harvey, like when I first started here 7 years ago, he was in here daily. Now I don't hardly see him in the office at all, but it is because he's gotten to the position where he is really, so much of his money now is being made in these areas to where he's not here doing as much real estate. Most of the real estate he does now is him buying or selling. You know, he's not doing much for clients anymore because he's built it to where he's now moved from this category to this. So you can do the same thing. All right, so now, any questions on any of this before I go into the business plan now then? No. I'm gonna see if I can pull up real quick while you guys think about that. A business plan to show on Zoom. I didn't think about bringing one in here for the, or putting it on the computer. Let's see if I have one handy.
I guess just out of curiosity, is there a difference between charity and philanthropy?
No,
Okay.
I mean, at the end of the day, once you become a philanthropist, that's basically you're giving away your money to charities, doing charitable things with it. All right, let me see. Oops. Oh, there it is. Good. Okay, I can share this then. So let me put the screen down so you guys can see it. Okay, so for the most part, we've covered what I wanted to, but I just want to run you through, because basically the next step is this is for you guys to go fill out the business plan. There it is. Okay. All right, so here's the idea. What we're going to do now is I'm just going to kind of run you guys through how to fill this out. So we're not actually going to fill it out, but I just want to run you through basically how you want to approach it. So let me get these lights off so you guys can see. All right, so business plan for obviously the way we have this designed is you could do it monthly if you wanted to, or you can put your name in there, business plan for, and put your name for 2022. So you can do this, just decide if you want to do it from today to the end of the year, or if you're going to do it as from today until April 1st next year. Okay. So you're going to go through, put that in there. Put in your previous numbers. So I don't know, like, so for you, James, you could go through and say, okay, for last year, what did this look like?
Right.
For most of the rest of you guys, at least, you're not going to be able to put in the previous year's numbers because you didn't have it. But now, though, we know where we are for our goal for this year. So this is where we're going to start. It is total commissions earned. So this is where, for James, using that number I said there, 173,642 or whatever it was, you're going to write that down as being the commission goal earned. So total closed transactions. So from there, what you're going to do is say, okay, so I would take that $173,642 and divide it by our average commission. So if you know what that is for you, then just plug it in there. If you're not sure, then what I would say is take kind of what I would say is the average, let's just say $10,000 to make it easy. And then whatever split you're on, take that off from the 10,000. So if you're on a 70% split, then go, okay, I'm going to make $7,000 per close. Divide the 173,000 into the 7,000 into the 173,000 to figure out, okay, that's how many transactions I got to do. Okay. Yeah. Now, the good news is though, is you're going to probably cap before, maybe by the time you hit 173,000, you're going to have capped. So your split will actually have gone up. So you'll probably actually need less transactions than that, but that's fine.
So there's a buffer.
Yeah. So just throw in the number of transactions. So let's just say that ends up being 25. Okay. So I'm going to put in there, then if I'm going to make 173,642 or 462, whatever it was, then I need to close 25 transactions. Well, in order to get 25 transactions, how many appointments am I going to need to attend?
Per month or per the year?
This would be for the year.
Okay.
So, but like I say, you could
Yeah,
break
no.
this down into month if you wanted to do it per month too. But so, okay, if I wanted to get 25 transactions in the next year, how many appointments would I need to attend? Well, typically I say to just double the number. So if I need 25 transactions, I probably need to attend 50 appointments. Okay.
Okay.
So of that, how many total listings taken do I need to get how many? I need to talk to somebody and have them flop this. I think this should be reversed. I think you should do listings sold and then taken. But so from the 25 transactions up there, how many of those are going to be listings sold? Now, typically, I would say for the newer agents, you're going to typically, and again, there's exceptions always, but typically you're going to be heavier on the buyer side sales than you are on the listing as a new agent. As your career goes on, you'll start to do more and more listings and less buyers. So let's just say though, if I was new and I needed 25 transactions, I would say probably out of those 25, somewhere between 8 and 10 are probably going to be listings. I mean, you want it to be all 25, but 8 to 10, let's just say, are going to be, let's just do 10 to keep the math easy. So I'm going to put down 10 listings sold, which means I'm going to probably have to take 12. Okay, and really in today's market, you might not even 10 for 10 probably, but usually I would say just kind of look at, you're going to have one or two that something happens that it doesn't sell. So just say you need to take 12 listings. Okay, so total buyer controlled sales. Well, if I did 10 of those and I'm wanting to get 25, then I got to do 15 buyer controlled sales. Okay, so outgoing referrals, I always say you should have do at least one a quarter that you are sending through our relocation department. One time every quarter that you send out an outgoing referral. Total days worked, just decide how many days are you going to work. If you're not sure, I usually just say use 240. That gives you the other 125 days of the month or the year, excuse me, off. So total days work, but you can figure that out. Total hours prospected. So how many hours per day are you going to be prospecting? So which we need, we're going to finish this off and then I'm going to go into schedule. We'll talk about the schedule, the ideal schedule, but figure out from your schedule, how many hours prospected per day, per week, a month or a year, however you want to do it, that you're going to prospect, and how many contacts do you have to use. Now, you'll hear me talk about this differently. So I'm going to say something right now, but for a new agent, it's a good place to start. You probably may have a better idea, but usually I recommend total contacts per day that you're going to do should equal to the number of transactions you want to do. So if you want to do 25 transactions a day, you need to be doing, or excuse me, 25 transactions a year, you need to be making 25 contacts a day. Now, in a different class, I'm going to show you why that's not true, but it's a good place to start for a new agent. So that's where I usually say, put that in there. All right.
I like how you protect yourself. So next time it comes around, you're like, hey, I didn't say it.
I can say, remember I said, I'm just going to tell you that's BS. All right, next. So prospecting. So what are your sources of business? And we talked about this already on Tuesday, but identify 2 or 3 sources of business. One of them has to be your sphere of influence. The other 1 or 2 could be whatever you want. But just so then go through and fill out that. The next is sphere of influence. You want to go through and put in how many people do I have today? How many people do I want to have at the end of the year? The difference is going to be how many I need to add. I will email them monthly, mail them. I think you should do quarterly, personal contact at least quarterly, and then posting on social networks. Mindset. I've already given you a few books. So if you haven't read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, add that in here. Richest Man in Babylon, throw that one in there. I'll give you a bunch more throughout the classes. Any audios, events, company trainings, the skill sets. So we talked on Tuesday about the different skill sets, the 12 skills. Identify which ones you're going to work on and who you will work on them with. And then accountability, which again, we talked about on Tuesday, but who are you going to do some accountability contracts with? What systems and strategies are you going to implement? And then the last piece on the business plan is what are the challenges you see for this? So in fact, actually, I'm going to put the screen back up and do one other thing real quick. So I'm going to stop the share on that. But keep in mind, the next thing I'm going to talk about is these challenges and solutions, and then we'll do schedule, and then we'll be done. So let me get the lights back on. screen. All right. Once you put this together, the last thing we want to look at is what are the challenges that I'm going to have to accomplishing this? Okay. What are going to be the things that are going to be a struggle for that? And only you're going to know that. What are the things that tend to hold you back? And then what you want to do there is then figure out the solution. So now here's what I want to show you. So if I wanted to go from point A right here to point B over here. Okay. And I'm in a sailboat here. That's a sailboat, not a putting green. But if I'm in a sailboat and I want to go from point A to point B and the wind is blowing like this. Do we have any sailors in here? Anybody know anything about sailing? We're on Zoom. Okay. If I
I got a
wanted,
merit badge.
you got the merit badge?
Yeah.
Okay, good. You'll be able to help me then. If I wanted to go from point A to point B in a sailboat, can I do it if the wind's blowing straight in my face from point B to point A?
No.
Okay, the answer actually is yes. Now, it's through a term that's called tacking. So this is what you have to do in the sailboat is what's going to have to happen is first I'm going to sail this way, then I'm going to turn and sail back this way, then I'm going to turn and come back this way. So yes, I can do it in a sailboat, but you have to use this thing called tacking, which so now let's go back to what we were just talking about in the business plan. You're going to stop and look at it and go, okay, what are my challenges to getting to that? So now let's even just talk on listing site. We're low on listings. So one of your challenges to achieving your goal might be the inventory. So what's my solution for that? And then you're going to come up with a solution. So now let's come back to the sailing. If I'm sitting here and I'm in a sailboat and the wind is blowing straight in my face, I want to get from point A to point B. I don't have an oar and I don't have an engine. It's just the sail. So I have to rely on the wind. I can do it, but I'm going to have to use this thing called tacking, which means I'm going to have to go what looks like off track. I mean, the whole time you're doing this, somebody that doesn't know anything about sailing would see the person get in the boat and head off this way and be like, yeah, see, told you couldn't do it. Yeah, see, they're getting nowhere there where they need to be. And then all of a sudden, boom, they're there. So it looks like they're off track. But now here's the interesting thing. What if though, I was in a sailboat sitting here and there was no wind? Zero. I don't have an oar and I don't have a motor. Can I get from point A to point B? Now you guys don't dare to answer.
I mean, not in the boat, probably. I mean, get out and
Swim, yeah, okay, good. But in the boat, what's gonna happen if I'm sitting in a boat in the ocean or a lake, whatever, and there's no wind?
There's no momentum.
That's right. Essentially, I'm just gonna drift.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go wherever the current takes me, right? So here's what I want you to see. This is the key piece of this in terms of on the business plan, the challenges and solutions. A lot of times the thing that looks like it's there to keep you from getting to your goal, the wind, is actually the thing you need to get to your goal. So the question is, when you write down what the challenges are, stopping and saying, how do I harness the forces that are there? Because essentially what you're doing in a sailboat is saying, I'm going to take the forces that are acting to keep me from getting where I want to go and figure out how to use them to actually have those be the reason. Because the reason the sailboat can do it is because of the wind. It just has to harness the forces and use them in a different way than what we typically think about. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what you want to do on that challenges and solutions part is you got to stop and go, okay, what are the things that are holding me back from doing this? And how do I take those very things to use them as a way to actually achieve the goal? All right, last piece, then we'll be done. And that is schedule. So I'm going to give to you what I think the ideal schedule looks like. Okay. And then your homework assignment is go fill out this business plan and post it, share it with people, have people hold you accountable to that plan. And if you'll do that and you'll go through this process, you'll achieve the goal. So next year, James, when we're doing the awards ceremony, I'm gonna see you stand up in the category that's in the 173,000.
Range. Let me go through the numbers first.
Yeah, whatever it
But
is.
Yeah, I feel you. No,
Yeah,
for sure. I
whatever.
got you. Okay.
Okay, good. So now let's go through and talk about schedule. Here's what, in terms of schedule. When should your schedule start?
When should your schedule start?
Yeah.
Isn't it just the day?
Well, yeah, meaning like the time of day. When should you start your schedule of here's what my day is gonna look like? It's kind of a trick question.
Yeah, is there like a one?
Yeah, here's the trick question. The night before.
Yeah.
Your schedule should always start the night before. Now, here's what I mean by that. For me, in the morning, the stuff that should be in your schedule in the morning, and I'm not necessarily going to set a time to this first part of it because everybody's going to be a little different. But I think every morning you need to do some form of exercise, some type of reading that you're going to get in. And then I hate that I'm going to say this one, but I've actually learned from experience that I'm going to say it anyway. Shower. And here's the funny thing. So the reason I bring that up is the day before I taught this class, this was years ago, but the day before I taught this class, I was down standing next to an agent and I was like, he stinks bad. And I was just like, so the next day when I was teaching the class, I was like, in the morning, you need to read and exercise. And I was like, and shower, because I stood by somebody that stinks. And here's the funny thing is, the next day I left here and went down to our St. George office to teach a class. I get down there and I'm standing there talking to an agent. I won't even say the gender, but I was standing there talking to this agent and I was like, oh my gosh, like, I don't think I was this person, sorry, has showered or washed their clothes or anyway. So anyway, I always throw that in the morning. You should do some type of reading and get your exercise in and shower so you don't stink. Which part of that actually too, real quick. The guy that mentored me on a lot of this stuff that I'm teaching you guys, I went to him. So remember I said I've been training for over 15 years. So over 15 years ago, I go to this guy and I'm like, how do you tell if somebody's going to be successful in real estate or not? Like when I'm in these classes teaching the agents, like, how can I tell who's going to be successful or not? And he said, here's what I've learned. It's the smell test. If they stink, there's nothing you can do for them. But if they don't stink, you can help them. And I was like, okay. So don't stink is the moral. Okay. All right. So what? Yeah, you're checking. All right, so the next piece that I would say is role play that you should have in your schedule is when are you going to practice? And this is always, I know people don't like to role play, and for years I hated it too. But when I finally realized professionals practice, spring training is going on right now down in Arizona and in Florida, where all the major league teams are getting ready for the season. Well, guess what they're doing? Role play. They're practicing on a ground ball. This is how I'm going to field it. And in essence, it's role play, right? So you need to have that built in there. Now, we at the company offer that every day at 7 a.m. So either come be here in person with Rick and Ruby doing role play, or get on Zoom and participate in role play every morning, 7 a.m. Okay. 8 o'clock then is going to be morning ascent. Now, the good news is, again, I would recommend come and be here. But if not, it's on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It's on Zoom that you can watch Morning Ascent. The idea of that is, again, to just kind of get you mentally ready to go out and do your job. 9 o'clock should be prospecting. Now, I have always, again, over the last 15 plus years, people have asked me, when's the best time to prospect? And you will hear differing opinions. Some people will be like, oh, you should do it in the afternoon because that's when people are home. And here's for me, the answer is prospect whenever you'll do it. But I've found usually morning is the best time to do it. And the reason for that is typically the people you are contacting have less stress in their life in the morning as a general rule. And you, in terms of your career, will usually have less stress in the morning. As the day goes on is when you're going to get calls from lenders if this person doesn't qualify or all that kind of stuff. So I've just found doing it in the morning is best. So typically, I say from 9 until noon is prospecting time. Okay? So if you will just, now here's the thing. I realize the schedule I'm giving to you guys, some people are gonna be like, well, I can't do that because I gotta get my kids to school or whatever. Like, you're gonna have differing things. The key thing is just look at all of the stuff that's in here and figure out when can you do it. And then create for yourself, this is what the schedule is. Be like the business owner that says, this is what, it's like I said, if you went to a business and said, we're gonna be open sometime between 9 and 10, or 8 and 10, like that business isn't gonna stay in business very long. Treat it as, create your schedule. Even if you have to do it as on these days, this is what my schedule is, on these days, this is what it is, and on this day, this is like, but create it as like, this is what my week or my month is gonna look like, and then it's in stone. Like, you're a business owner, you gotta do it, okay? All right, so noon would be then go get some lunch. 1 o'clock is usually when I say to do your lead follow-up. So you've spent all this time prospecting in the morning, generating leads, then 1 o'clock, you're gonna come and be doing the lead follow-up from the leads that you've got. So from 1 to 2 is lead follow-up. 2 o'clock is gonna be appointment prep time. Now, let me say this. Here's what I watch agents do. They're prospecting up here between 9 and noon, and somebody says, yeah, we'd be interested in knowing what our house is worth. And instead of waiting to do that down here, they stop prospecting and go start doing appointment prep stuff during your prospecting. Instead, treat it as prospecting. Same thing. So let me use another example. When I was out knocking on doors, if somebody said to me, yeah, I'd be curious, come on in and take a look at my house. Well, hold on. I got to finish what I'm doing right now, because I always started my door knocks with, we've listed at your neighbor's home. And I would just, even if it wasn't my listing, I would find the closest Century 21 listing to their house and say, we listed a home over on this street, and I'm here to see who you know that wants to move in the area. Then when somebody would say to me, oh, well, yeah, come on in, take a look at my house. I'd love for you to tell me what it's worth. Well, I need to finish working for our sellers first, then I would be happy to come back. So I could come back, and then whenever you're gonna schedule your appointment, okay? All right, but when you're prospecting, stick to your prospecting, get your contacts in, do your appointment prep down here. And I know that's really, really hard, especially for newer agents, because you're like, I got an appointment, I gotta go check it out. And that's always more fun than prospecting anyway, right? So, all right.
It's kind of like the same thing for a closing. If you're closing a deal, like if it's closing at noon, you're like, all morning, and you're newer.
Yeah.
What do you can focus on? No, get back
Yeah,
to
you
work.
can't focus on anything but that. You're right. Okay. So then 3 o'clock should be your first appointment slot, and 5 o'clock, the next appointment slot. Now, again, I'm going to reemphasize what I said. I know some people are going to look at this and go, well, I can't follow that schedule for whatever reason. But basically what I'm saying is create for yourself, when are you going to read, exercise, shower, role play, prospect, when are you going to do your lead follow-up? What you should have time scheduled for appointment prep, and then when you're going to do your appointments. Now, so on Tuesday, I mentioned to you guys, our top agent here in Utah is Brian Burnett down in St. George. What I just gave to you is his schedule. This is the schedule he follows. Now, the only exception to that is this. 1 day a week, he will do a 7 o'clock appointment. So he'll have 1 day out of the week that he will do an appointment at 7 o'clock. But his objective is to be home by 6 o'clock every day. He made $2.8 million last year, and he's home by 6 o'clock every day. Now, in the event that he has not hit his goal in terms of the number of appointments, then on Saturday, he will work on a Saturday. If he gets behind during the week, he'll work on Saturday until noon. So he will go into the office until noon to either get his contacts or the appointments that his goal was, which his goal, I don't remember what it is now in terms of appointments, but he's got a goal every day to set X number of appointments. And if he hasn't done that by Saturday, then he has to work until noon.
And he's still an individual agent, isn't he?
But he is now, this year, he'll be a team.
Oh.
He has been an individual, but he's going to be classified now as a team. But yeah, $2.8 million was his gross commission income, and he's home by 6 o'clock every day. Because a lot of times people are like, they see that, oh, he made $2.8 million. And the first thing we tend to think is, well, I don't want to be that busy. I don't want to work that hard. Well, he's home by 6 every day. Unless hasn't hit his goals, then he'll work till noon on Saturday. And then he's off. So typically Saturday and Sunday he's off, but that's the schedule. So here's the key thing. Whatever it is for you, just put together what your schedule is going to look like. And then here's the thing. Give it to somebody to hold you accountable to it. It's no different than what I shared with you guys on Tuesday about with Shirley that I would prospect with. If I wasn't at the office by 9:15, she was calling me saying, where are you at? And the challenge we have here is from a company standpoint, we kind of have to look at you as self-employed, meaning as a 1099 employee, we can't tell you when to show up. But we can if you tell us, here's my schedule, hold me accountable to it. So find somebody that you can create the schedule for and give it to them and say, this is what my schedule looks like. The other thing that will help you with this is the other challenge that we have in real estate is your friends and family look at you as like, oh, well, they're self-employed. If I need an errand run, they call you to go, hey, could you go pick up my car? Could you go pick up so-and-so at the airport? And if you've got a schedule, you can go, yeah, I could do it, but it's not gonna be till 6 o'clock or, whatever. But create your schedule. And then the idea of your prospecting is to fill these appointment slots and not necessarily that day, but maybe the next day.
The best part that I love about this is the number 12, right? So the challenges and solutions. I think that it's so easy. Like I see the schedule and I kind of try to look for reasons why it's hard to make this happen. And I just realized there's so many times throughout the day where it's like, I spend small times of like just talking, hanging out, being very social. That I definitely see that being a challenge, but it's possible to alleviate that. Now I just have to figure it out. That's what the whole goal setting is for everything.
That's right. Yep. It's just figuring that. And part of what will help with that is put together the schedule and then get somebody to say, if you see me off talking when I'm supposed to be prospecting, like.
And I was thinking about like, I'm in an environment where on the 3rd floor, it's very open. People come and talk all the time. I realize, oh, an hour and a half went by.
Yep.
Sorry, guys.
Yep. Yep. It's that.
Yes.
In fact, thank you for saying that. That is the one thing that I would say for real estate that I have found is the biggest struggle is people don't want to do their prospecting. And so they'll come talk to you to avoid prospecting, and then it hurts you. And like, you almost have to kind of just say, hey, I'd be glad to talk to you. Let's go to lunch, but I got a prospect.
And that's what I mean. Like, I was even thinking like, what's the solution there? It's maybe look at trying to go see what an office looks like or a setup that's maybe a little bit more private and like, just like, hey, like I'm in this zone right now. So
Yep.
I just think that's a really good point.
Yep. So cool. Okay. Any other questions, comments? All right. We're done then.
When are you doing SOI class again?
Good
Anytime
question.
soon?
I don't remember. Let me see if I can find it here real quick. I'll have to get the schedule. I don't remember what it is.
So for that one.
I want to say it's in May. Where's it at? I don't know. I may have missed it. I don't know. I've got it. I've got the skit. Oh, it's right here. Is it on here?
Oh,
Yeah, May 19th.
May 19th.
So yeah,
Okay.
we've got the schedule right here on the board.
Oh, perfect.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks for being here. I told you we.
Thanks, Russ.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Hey Russ, can you send me or can you email me the papers for that?
The business plan?
Yes.
Yep, I will. Yeah,
Appreciate it.
you put your email in the chat box, right?
Yes, I did.
Yep. I'll give it to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Russ. Have a good one.